Good evening, everyone, and welcome to What Teachers Actually Earn, Making a Good Living Teaching. This virtual event will focus on teacher compensation, on benefits, and long-term career advancement. We're going to reframe the conversation about teaching as not only meaningful work, but also as a viable career option and a rewarding profession. So we'll give you room to grow and to learn more with that. My name is Jeremy, and I serve as Senior Program Manager here at Teach, and I'm excited to be your moderator and host for this evening's event. So here's an overview of our time together. We'll start by grounding ourselves in this virtual space. Then we'll share a quick overview about Teach and what we offer. From there, we'll look at some of the key opportunities and why this conversation matters, and then move into a rich panel discussion, and then close with community reflections and next steps. I want to take a moment to ground us in this space. Please use the chat to share comments and build community. If you'd like captions, click the live transcript button. Through this webinar, you'll feel free to use the Q&A feature to share questions or reflections. We'll also provide a survey at the end, and your feedback really matters and helps us make future events even stronger. So everyone who completes the survey will have a chance to win a $200 prize, so make sure you stay until the end. Our mission here at Teach is to help end the national teacher shortage. And we do that by partnering with state departments of education, universities, and school districts across several states and metro areas, including Colorado, Connecticut, Dallas, Houston, Maryland, Minnesota, New Mexico, New York, North Carolina, San Antonio, and South Carolina, to encourage as many people as possible to enter the teaching profession and make an impact in their communities. Teach offers personalized support for anyone interested in becoming a teacher, and this includes one-on-one coaching with current educators, job listings, program search tools, direct financial assistance, checklists, and how-to guides. And if you live in one of our partner regions, you can access all of these through your Teach account. If you're outside of those regions, we'll still do our best to support you on your journey. So, before we jump into our panel conversation, we want to ground this discussion in reality. There's often a misconception that teaching cannot provide financial sustainability, but that picture is more complex than many people realize. In many regions across the country, teachers have access to competitive salaries, to healthcare benefits, retirement systems, and opportunities for salary growth over time. Many educators also increase their earnings through advanced certifications, leadership roles, coaching, curriculum work, and specialized positions. There are also financial supports available, including loan forgiveness programs or scholarships, tuition reimbursements, and district incentives for high need subject areas. So teaching is not only not always, it doesn't always make headlines as a high paying profession, but for many people, it offers something incredibly valuable. And that's stability, purpose, long-term growth, and a career that is consistently in need of every community. As we think about careers and financial security more broadly, it's also important that we consider how the workforce is changing. Across industries like technology, media, customer service, and even parts of law and business, artificial intelligence is beginning to replace and or automate many entry-level tasks or positions. That is a reality, creating uncertainty for a lot of young professionals entering the workforce today. At the same time, teaching remains a deeply human invested work. Students need mentorship, they need encouragement, relationship building, critical thinking, classroom leadership, and emotional support, things that technology cannot replace. and education continues to offer a reliable and community-centered career pathway with opportunities for advancement and impact. And while the profession certainly faces challenges, the need for strong educators is not going away. So tonight's conversation is really about understanding teaching not only as meaningful work, but also as a profession with long-term relevance, sustainability, and opportunity in a rapidly changing world. So with that, I would love to introduce to you our panelists for tonight. First, we have Emily Camarena. Emily is a 25-year public education veteran and executive director of talent management at Fort Worth ISD, where she oversees all staffing, hiring, and onboarding after building the district's teacher pipeline system from the ground up. Hi, Emily. Then we have Guillermo Carmona. Guillermo is a communications and education leader with over two decades of experience as a principal, assistant principal, and state level contributor. He's now serving as director of communication for Gadsden ISD, where he leads district-wide strategy, crisis response, bilingual engagement for more than 11,000 students and families. Hi, Guillermo. And then we have Lamoris Smith. Lamoris is an assistant professor of elementary education and director of teacher recruitment at UNC Pembroke, where he brings over a decade of experience as a teacher, an administrator, and mentor, guided by the belief that every child deserves a champion. Hi, Lamoris. So we are ready now to dive into our conversation for tonight. So we'll start with you, Emily. Thank you again for joining us tonight. Excited to hear from all of you all. So for you, as someone who is overseeing staff and hiring in major school districts, what are some of the trends you are seeing in education careers and workforce sustainability right now?
Yes, and just to frame my experience, I am in a large urban school district in Texas. And one of the things that we're seeing is that we're seeing fewer graduates that are coming out of like the traditional program. We're seeing fewer like traditional student teachers and year-long residents. And so many like early career teachers are coming out of alternative certification, which makes organizations like teach.org even more critical because these alternative certification folks, they're trying to find their pathway, right? And so we're seeing that. And when we see that, we have to continue to engage with EPPs, but which are educator preparation programs at the university level, but also with all our alternative certification programs as well. We have to be proactive because it's really competitive out there, and especially for an urban school district. So we have to be competitive with our salary. And then also we have a very hard time right now with bilingual teachers and special education teachers. And so we also, now, on top of that, we will provide stipends for those teachers, up to $5,000 stipends for those fields. So, and then also some of the feedback we get from new teachers is that they're just looking also to make sure that they have like a mentor and like they want a strong mentorship program. And so we're having to make sure that we have those programs in place because not only do we want to hire really great fresh teachers, but we want to keep them as well.
Yeah, that's super, super important. And I love the fact that you brought up, mentorship and what these teachers are needing. And even, you mentioned one of the specialized programs. And so if you all are out there in Dallas, know that there is an opportunity for specialized teachers in bilingual education. And that happens, like we mentioned earlier, across many school districts where there are special opportunities for aspiring educators or educators who are in certain subject areas. So thank you for raising that.
Absolutely.
So Guillermo, earlier I mentioned, the how AI is reshaping industries like tech and media and even some legal work. So why do you believe that education continues to remain deeply human-centered work?
Yeah, absolutely. Good afternoon, everybody. What a wonderful opportunity. I love that I've been given this opportunity to talk to you guys. AI is absolutely reshaping things, right? And education, I would include it, but I don't think we should pretend otherwise. But it's even though it's embedded everywhere, at the same time, I think we've learned, especially like through the pandemic, how important the human aspect of what we do is. So we discovered, through the pandemic, we went one-to-one devices and really had to lean heavily on virtual instruction and a lot of digital instruction. And we're sort of still digging out from that. And it's been really driven home to me that that human connection was really lacking. And so I think there's always going to be room for our audience here. We need you in the classroom, and we need fresh faces like Ms. Camarena was mentioning, and we do want to support you. I think we're entering a period of like recalibration because AI is a reality, and I think I just want to float out there the idea of like alpha schools. It's a private AI school, and they sort of brag that they can do an entire academic day in about 2.5 hours because of AI. That's not really the headline. I think the headline there is what that opens up the rest of the day, and that the rest of the day is really student-centered, human learning, human interaction, and they need a very dynamic person in the room with them to accomplish that. So I do want to encourage you to join the field and don't be afraid of AI, embrace it. But the future of education isn't going to be less human. It's going to be more human. We're going to need more of you in there and more of you thinking student centric.
Yeah. And thank you for not shying away from the fact that AI is certainly, shaping a lot of our lives and a lot of like what the future looks like. But also raising, what we experienced back during the pandemic, that lack of human connection and then being able to now have that connection again and knowing, how valuable it is. I think that there was just a time period that just taught us, how valuable human connection really is. So yeah, I think that certainly like speak to that point.
Absolutely.
So Lamoris, you work with many young professionals and many of them are questioning, about what careers will feel meaningful and secure in the future. So why do you believe that teaching remains a worthwhile investment today?
Oh, absolutely. So, as my colleagues here have said, good evening to everyone, and I'm so excited about this opportunity. When I can talk about teaching, I can go on and on and on. So, I am so excited to be here with you all this evening. It is my belief that teaching remains a worthwhile investment today because of what that one word in there, investment. To me, what other investment is there? When we think about investing in children, thinking about investing in our youth, thinking about investing in the future, these folks are our future. Teaching has always been a noble profession, and to me, it does not go away. We know that we hear a lot of discussions, we hear a lot of backlash, we hear a lot of things, a lot of negative things towards the teaching profession. But for me, it is a profession that is here to stay. It is the backbone of our American society. And to me, it's the investment in knowing that what we do every day sets our children up for the rest of their lives. I tell my students all the time as a professor at the university level, because of what we do, because of what they are going to do, and hopefully because of what you will do one day, children and youth will be able to say that they've been set up for the rest of their lives. No other profession can say that. Not knocking other professions. We need all of the professions in the world to make everything go round. But teaching makes all other professions possible. And for us as teachers, what we get to do every day, children will be able to say that they're set up for the rest of their lives. They're going to be able to read, they're going to be able to do math, and figure out science discoveries and all of those things because of what a teacher has done. So to me, that alone makes the profession worthwhile investing in.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're certainly right. I mean, education is really at the foundation of how our entire democracy work, right? It's how we are all able to even be civically engaged and to be productive members of society. And so it certainly is, the foundation to many of the things that makes our society work. So thank you for lifting that. Taking a little turn here, Emily, when people talk about teacher compensation, right? What do you think are parts of that financial picture that are often overlooked and that go beyond just the starting salary?
Yes. First, I want to definitely clarify when I'm talking about ACP, alternative certified teachers, and traditionally certified teachers. Once you're certified, you enter at the same pay rate. So it doesn't matter how you get certified, as long as you're certified, and you'll enter at the same pay rate. I think what's important is that yes, you look at the whole salary, but you really need to look at like the days you work and your daily rate. So, for example, in my district, a traditional campus, because we have several variations of campuses here, but a traditional campus, the starting salary is 64,500, and they work 187 days. So that daily rate for a teacher here is 344.92. So when you think of it that way, and then we annualize the salary. So yes, so they work until the end of May, but they'll still continue to get their paychecks because we take that 64,000 and we annualize it so they get paid, all 12 months. And so I think that's important to think about when you come into teaching. And also you want to think about things like the health care, the health insurance that you'll receive. Of yes, it's a cost, but it's definitely some an opportunity to have health care for you and your family. And then retirement contributions. We have a really strong retirement program here, a teacher retirement system in Texas. And then you also want to look at things like professional development days. Like, are there days in your 187 days, for example, that are just to work on lesson planning and professional development? And so those are all things that you can think about. Recently here in Texas, we started offering the teacher incentive allotment. And the teacher incentive allotment is basically like student growth and teacher performance bonuses for teachers. And so for that reason, like you got to think about the full compensation structure, not just the annual salary and not just the starting rate. And then you can get a much clearer picture of how competitive a district truly is.
Yeah, I'm glad that you lifted up that because that's often something that folks, don't realize is that, salaries in teaching are annualized. So you're not just thinking about only, the 10 months that you are teaching in the classroom, but your salary goes over that entire period. So I'm glad that you lifted that up. And even on, the opportunities for bonuses that exist in many school districts. And so after someone is certified and has gone through that process and gets hired, they'll have access to those opportunities and the other benefits that you mentioned. What's something that's important to me personally right now is retirement, and so you mentioning that as a benefit is certainly something that I think that we all, no matter where we are in life, should be considering and thinking about. Is that part of life that we want to enjoy after we are done with our careers?
Absolutely. I'm eligible in January, so I'm not
Woo!
counting the days or anything.
Yeah, I have to pipe in. That is a wonderful thing. The days of a pension are almost gone. This is one of the last bastions of the employment realm where you can rely on a really good pension. And Emily, I'm wondering in Texas, is it similar like in New Mexico? Because I am also eligible, so I just found out. Your highest 5 years, they don't,
Yeah.
just wherever they landed, then they average those out, and that is then in for 25 years here, it's about 59% of the highest five average. And then you can rely on that for your retirement, más o menos.
Yep, around that. That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. So learned a little bit about retirement right there for everybody.
'Cause we're counting the days.
That's right.
And congratulations to both of you.
Indeed. So, Lamoris, how do you, help aspiring teachers balance purpose and passion, and the financial realities when they're considering a career in teaching?
Okay, cool. So when I think about kind of balancing the profession, one of the things I really have to emphasize is that strong motivations are a great starting point. We have to ensure that future educators or aspiring educators have that motivation, and not just a motivation just to do the work, but to be passionate about it. We have to turn those motivations into what I like to call everyday habits and realistic plans.
Mm,
Luckily for me, I get to serve as the director of teacher recruitment, like I said. So I get to see our students and potential students from the very beginning of their careers, or their higher ed careers, I should say. I also teach courses at the beginning of our elementary education program. So I see those students from the very beginning. So I get to help lay that foundation. And one of the things that I make a strong habit of doing is that I design course assignments that are to help educators clarify their why. And for me, that's to really focus on the purpose and the passion behind what it is that they are going to do. They have to have the impact of students, the community in which they are going to work in, the people that they're going to work with. Because as I stress to our students all the time, it's not just children that you are impacting. There's a greater community in which you are impacting there as well, whether that's your personal community or someone else's. But it means something to someone. So grounding yourself in that, having that purpose, that passion is really going to help. From there, we start to develop realistic plans for time management, for routines, and kind of those long term goals. What is it that you are thinking about doing as you continue to matriculate through the teaching profession? We have to have those tough conversations, but those real conversations as well. And to me, that helps our students to see that that passion doesn't just feel like pressure, but it's something that is going to continue to fuel them to do the work. The reality of teaching is that we are not in it for the monetary benefit. We've talked about that quite a bit here. We know that a lot of people like to talk about it as not being a great salary, but Emily just very beautifully executed the breakdown of when we think about our salary and kind of the fringe and the benefit and all of those things that come along with that. But when we think about the financial realities, to me, there's so much more than just a monetary benefit. That to me it kind of takes me back to my first talking about the worthwhile investment. Again, when an adult can say that they were able to accomplish something because of the foundation that was laid in a classroom, to me, that's worth more than any dollar amount that there could be. But we do know that there are the financial realities. We know that there are licensure prep. We know that there are a lot of monetary things that are connected with teaching, even through teacher prep. So when you're in an actual educator preparation program, there's some financial commitments there. And then beyond the classroom, once you are actually in the field. But some of the things that we've been able to do at our institution is help our students to see it from the start of their ed prep program all the way through their teaching profession as well. We've been able to offer some professional developments so that we can help students to see that even though they're young professionals, they're kind of not thinking about long-term things, but we've been able to have some financial literacy professional development opportunities where we've invited some local banks, some individuals from local banks to come in and speak with our students about making those sound financial decisions. We are fortunate to have an Office of Financial Aid on our campus, as most institutions do. So we've been able to partner with those individuals to conduct workshops, as well as district level level personnel to discuss a little more about, like Emily said, the salary and the fringe benefits and those things so that our students start to make those connections from the very start of their time with us all the way through their teaching profession as well.
Yeah, I love that you all lift up those things while they are yet pursuing their certifications with you all because it's important to not only have those conversations and to be real with them about realities of the profession, but also what you mentioned earlier and what I remember doing at the start of my own my own at the start of my career as an educator is that why, right? Like really staying grounded in that why, because when the things in the classroom it may not like feel like the best or that lesson may not have like landed the way you want to. Really going back to that why is super important amongst all the other things that we think about and consider as part of the career. So thank you for lifting those things up.
And Jeremy, I'll just say I've had students when we talk about that why, you mentioned it again. A lot of times our students say, well, I love kids. And
Mm.
so I tell them, that's a great thing. We do want you to love kids. We want you to love working with kids, but there's got to be a little more to that. There's got to be a little more to your why beyond just loving kids. That's a great start, but there's so much more because there are going to be those tough days where those kids that you love, it's going to be hard to love them. So you've got to have a little more in your toolbox that says this is my why.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Guillermo, in your experience, how do schools and educators help to create long-term stability, not just for students, but for the entire community?
Yeah, so welcome to education. It's one of the last places where you really do operate at a community level. One of the universals well, not universals, but one of the things that brings a community together is our care for kids and our prioritizing the future for our community. So we have a why as a community. Why do we do it? We do it for the next generation. We plant trees that we aren't going to sit under the shade of, and so it is a wonderful, wonderful career for that. And I do believe that we're one of the final institutions that is community minded. One thing I do highly encourage, and hopefully it's possible, and if not, I mean, you're still going to be part of the community, but if you can work in the community that which you teach in, it is wonderful, and you will see the fruits of your labor more readily. You'll see families at community events or when you're grocery shopping. And it is very, very, very rewarding to see that. And over time, you get a sense of relationship being a teacher, and you start to appreciate the glue that the schools do provide to a community, right? Whether it's like your fall festivals, your sporting events. We're in a very rural area, and football is it.
Yeah.
The Friday Night Lights brings the community together, and that is part of what we do. So again, if you can work in the same area that you're teaching in or live and work in, I do encourage that. And it does the schools provide a stability. Now it doesn't always feel that way if you're going on social media or whatever, but what I encourage you to do, because that's the lens that I look at currently, and then also as a principal, it's different when you're at the fall carnival, right? You
Mm.
don't see all the negative. You see these families with the commonality. We all love our kids. We all love our community. And most of us love football. So it really brings us together. And apart from our churches, I really don't know where you get that sense of community, and seeing kids come up is we were talking earlier about just how rewarding it is when and this is going to be a little bit random, but I went to U-Haul to fill up a propane tank, and one of my absolute all-time favorite students was the manager. Now, he was doing great, doing awesome, and gave me the best customer service before he recognized me. You know, before we made the connection, I was like, man, this kid's on fire. And so it's very rewarding, and schools do provide the glue. The why and the how is because of our love for our kids and long-term long-term success of our communities.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we were talking earlier before the call. One of my part of my teaching journey was getting to teach my students, and I looped up with them for several years, and they are very much still, present and part of my life, and I'm part of their lives like today. And so when as you lifted up, how important, schools and education is to a community, and certainly I can speak to that from experience for sure. Um, and but also, I'm just continuing on, with you, Guillermo, your work focuses heavily on trust and belonging and communication. So why do you think that those qualities are becoming even more important in education today?
Super important. And this speaks to, I think with my principal and teacher hat, because directive communications, you're sort of making stories, but we live in a time where, information is abundant. I mean, you can find, with AI, with the internet, information, but trust is scarce, right? And like I said in my previous comment, what you find online is not what you live in real life. Just like, it's super simple to say it that way, but walk in to an auditorium during a basketball game, go see a play, go see the band play, and you do get that sense of community, and that's where trust is established, right? That's where you see teachers investing in students, and then you see that performance, you see that game, you see academic events. So it is super important to remember that the community is trusting you with its most valuable asset, which is its our students. So it is very, very important. Um, you know, we and one thing I feel compelled to share is that, we don't have the luxury of editorializing the truth as an institution for lots of reasons, because of confidentiality laws and just plain ethics. We have to say it the way it is, and we have to be very guarded and very careful with the way we communicate, whether you're talking to a parent, if you're talking at a parent event or online. So it's just real important to remember that trust isn't built, during like a crisis, but you build trust over hundreds of really small interactions that happen every single day. So did you remember the parent's name at drop off?
Mhm.
That means a lot. You're dropping off your pride and joy, and for that teacher to remember, Mr. Carmona, how you doing? Or if they call you by your first name, that's even extra. They've taken the time to get to know their students' parents. Those little interactions are really the way that schools build community and trust. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's really, really important.
Absolutely is important. And as we're talking about qualities, trust is certainly like a great quality that is a great indicator of an excellent school, of an excellent like teacher. But for you, Emily, what are some of the qualities that make educators stand out from your perspective and from your seat, as leaders in today's schools and districts?
This is a really great question because we're all constantly looking for the next generation of leaders. Not only like in central office, but on campuses. Like we always need really strong teachers to lead and then develop into, maybe campus administration. But of course, we want them to have the pedagogy and that instructional knowledge. But there's like the ability to be able to collaborate and influence and just to be have those collegial conversations with their peers. And then we want them to be able to build strong relationships and not just with, their students, but their students, of course, but also their families and their community and, and their peers, because that's how you build up your culture is through relationships. And so that's critically important. We also want our leaders in schools look at data. We want them to have data-driven decision making, right? But we cannot forget about the piece of the heart. So we look at the data, but we also look at those relationships and look at the whole student, right? Because data only tells us a piece of the story. And I think also in education, we just have these ebbs and flows, and sometimes we're doing this curriculum, but next year we'll do this one. And so we just have to be open to a growth mindset. I mean, as a principal, I would tell my teachers, and even now as a AD for HR, I tell my staff, if you stop learning, you stop leading.
Mm,
And so we have to be open to learning. Even, this stage of my career, I'm still going to professional learning. I'm still going to professional development and updates because I want to continue to sharpen my saw. And so that is something that we have to be open to do, to have that growth mindset because ultimately, students are impacted because we become better versions of ourselves.
yeah. Yeah, I want to lift up, this idea because we didn't talk about it as much earlier, but professional development. You just talked about that and mentioned it, and how super important it is to think about that, right? When you are developing yourself as a professional, um, there are not just those opportunities to do that, like on your campus and in your district, but when I was more active in the classroom, I went to conferences in the next school district and in the next state, and even some national conferences, and to help, advance myself in those careers. And so when you think about, professional development, when districts offer that, think about those opportunities to really not also, learn about, the things that, can help you be a better teacher, but things that you can bring back to the folks that you are working with too. And so that development, or that I would say that benefit extends beyond just you, but you can share that, in your professional learning communities, that you have like in your schools.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. So on the same vein and talking about qualities, Lamoris, you have shared and talk about, perseverance and championing students. Every child deserves a champion. Reminds me of Rita Pearson of it. But what do you see as impactful leadership in education? What does that look like to you?
Absolutely. And Rita's one of my favorites. So that is definitely a quote from her. Impactful leadership in education to me looks like consistently advocating for students. I will consistently say that we as teachers, we are champions, we are advocates for our students, especially when they are facing barriers. Um, it is our job to create those environments where our students feel safe, where they feel seen, where they are capable of experiencing success. And success looks different for every child. And we have to keep that in mind and create that environment where our students feel they feel okay to make those mistakes because that's where we see the true growth and true success coming when they are making those mistakes, but they are learning from that. It also means turning perseverance into action. We have to have high expectations for our students. We have to set those high expectations, and we have to help our students rise to the occasion. We have to provide that real support for our students, whether that's through relationships, whether that's through strong instruction, whatever the case may be, whatever we have to do as teachers, as advocates. We have to do that for our students. We are collaborating with families, with colleagues, um, so that our students don't have to do difficult things alone. I always tell our future teachers in our classes that there's a bridge between the school and the home. There's a bridge between school and community. And you, as the teacher, you're the glue that's kind of pulling those pieces together to collaborate and show and give your students the opportunity to see that there is a connection between what we're doing at school, what they're doing at home, and what they're going to be doing in the real world. One of the things that I absolutely love about our institution at UNCP is that we have a significant first generation college student population. We have received numerous awards around the work that we are doing in regard to supporting those first gen college students. One of the things, I am a first gen college student. And in 2024, the university did a Next Gen Alumni Excellence Award, and I was a recipient of that award. And what that award does is it recognizes alumni of our university who were the first in their family, obviously, to obtain a degree and whose professional achievements and career contributions to the community have modeled what it means for the next generation. And being a recipient of that award to me, it just set things in a different perspective for me. This work of perseverance, of championing, of advocacy, it is real for me. It is not something that I just talk about. It is something that I live, I breathe, that it is me. It is who I am. Had it not been for someone standing in the gap for me, my trajectory would have looked very different than it does today. And so, knowing that I get that opportunity to help students persevere, to champion for students, to advocate for our students, it is what grounds me in this work, and it's what continues to fuel this work that I do.
Yeah, and congratulations on that award. How wonderful is that to, for that be full circle, right? You're doing
Mhm,
this work,
mhm.
at the university who opened the door for you to be a first year, I mean, excuse me, a first generation, college graduate. And so congratulations to you on that because it's super, 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 important. And I know that I was also like recently, honored like from my university, so I know how special that feels. So
Mhm.
congratulations to you.
Thank you.
As folks are listening, I want you to know that, in just a few minutes, we're going to open the floor up to some questions for our panelists. And so if you have a question, go ahead right now and feel free to drop that in the chat, and then we'll come back to it in a moment. And also, you've heard about some great benefits of becoming a teacher and getting into the classroom. And so remember that we offer one-on-one coaching to help you figure out what your pathway into the teaching profession like would look like. So if you are on the call tonight and you are interested in becoming a teacher, definitely take advantage of the one-on-one coaching support that we offer in all of our regions, and we can help you be able to navigate your way into the profession. So, Lamoris, and continuing on, you've worked across classrooms, administration, and in higher education. So, um, you just shared a little bit about like what keeps you connected to this work, but what advice would you give, aspiring educators as they're entering the profession and during a time where there is rapid economic and technological changes?
Okay. One of the biggest pieces of advice that I give to students and any aspiring educator is to stay true to who you are. Recently, I had a conversation with a student who attended a state aspiring teachers conference for a day. It was an overnight stay. And when I asked a question of what is it that you want to teach, she immediately said, I don't want to teach. And my follow-up to her was, well, you do realize that you're at an aspiring teachers conference, right? And we went on and we talked about that. And I went on to share with her that I strongly felt that deep within, she had a calling on her life to serve in the field of education, or she would not have felt compelled to attend that conference. And so I tell folks all the time, stay true to who you are. You're going to hear a lot of talk about, no, you don't want to do that profession. You don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. But if it's grounded in you, if it is within your soul, you can't get away from it. You may run from it for a little while, but you're going to always come back. If that's your destiny, if that's where you are supposed to be, then you will come back to it. Also, I tell them stay rooted in student needs and while staying flexible in your own methods. Economic and technology shifts change what our students encounter. We've talked a little about AI tonight, and AI was not a thing, not like it is today. Just a few years ago. And so those shifts change a lot, and they are going to continue to change what our students encounter. But the goal that stays the same is that we have to continue to build relationships. We have to continue to teach effectively. We have to help students develop those practical skills for what happens beyond their classroom, beyond your classroom. And I tell my students all the time, you have to think about the next. You have to think about the next. You're teaching in the moment, but you're teaching for the next. You're teaching for the future. What happens once they leave your classroom? Can they continue to be productive citizens?
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. It's so important. Emily,
So
for
stay true to yourself. Be flexible in those methods.
sorry about that. But no, thank you, Lamoris. That was very, very insightful and certainly, something to consider as you all that are listening, as you are entering and considering entering the teaching profession. For you, Emily, what continues to inspire you about people entering education profession today?
Yep. So this is my 29th year in education. And I know I use good moisturizer. But this is my 29th year in education. And I firmly believe with my whole heart that this is the most noble profession. And that people, I mean, there's over 100 people on this call that are people who are still heeding the call to become a teacher, to show up for students. And even though the landscape in education at times is challenging, and like you talked earlier about the news and some of the stories that are coming out, there are people still showing up every day and wanting to be in front of students, and these students need great teachers. And so I love, especially, when I was a principal, I loved hosting student teachers. I love hosting new teachers because these new teachers to the profession, they bring so much energy. They have some really great new ideas. And they just bring, some of them bring a technology lens, some of them bring like different activities. And so their willingness to share and their willingness to grow, that's what I feel like is really, it just moves me today. And then also that they're coming into the field with just so much sincerity about wanting to grow students and to be there for students and to be the teacher that they never had, right? So they want to be there. And that just, to me, that I feel like I just know that those people, that we have people with really great hearts entering education. And so that still gets me up in the morning every day to do this job.
Yeah, I often say the same thing, being the teacher that I needed and are wanted like in my classroom for my
Yeah.
students.
hmm
Love that, love that. Guillermo, what gives you hope about the future of public education?
The I'll put it this way. When I zoom in, I'm very hopeful. So if I'm in a classroom watching, a new teacher, an experienced teacher, I often have that opportunity nowadays to go in and observe a lesson. I am very hopeful about the future. And so when I zoom out, less hopeful, right? Because you start looking at, sort of national level but what's happening right in front of us in our communities with students gives me a lot of hope. This event tonight, just seeing how many people are on this call and are considering the profession, that gives me a lot of hope. You could do a lot of things, right? And you're choosing to invest in our future, invest in our most valuable asset, which is our children. So that gives me hope, and that's what I would encourage all of us, right? When things get tough and when those headlines, come across your social media or whatever, remember those are very small examples, and every day there's amazing lessons, there's human connection, there's teachers making a difference just like somebody did for us, right? And we've touched on that. And I had the privilege of having some extraordinary educators who were able to see beyond my challenges and saw some potential in me. And you could be that person for somebody, which gives me chills to say it because it's so impactful. And how can you not have hope when you're the one that's providing hope? So it's often that's the way, that's the pathway, is you are the person that brings that hope, especially when you're in the classroom every day.
Yeah. No, that's so true. You could be that person.
Mhm.
Such a great segue into um, us opening the floor up like for questions. Gloria, I'll turn over to you. Do we have any questions from
We
our right?
we do, so I'm going to try to go through these really quickly. Could you specify why the salary needs to be competitive between ACP and the traditional teacher degrees, or do they offer less for ACPs in urban areas? They were a little
Yeah.
confused about that.
No, I did address that. I did see that kind of come up in the chat. So I did address that. It doesn't matter how you get certified, traditional or ACP. If you're a certified teacher, the salary isn't different for certified versus traditional, for ACP versus traditional.
Do you mind
Perfect.
if I chime in really quick?
Yeah.
I like what I recommend is just go onto your local school district and look for salary schedule. And like, if you're in New Mexico, we have three different tiers. We have level one for our beginning teachers, two and three, and to Ms. Camarena's point, you're right. It doesn't matter how you got there. You'll be a year one teacher, level one, and you can see what those salaries are.
So when it comes to health benefits, what about sick days? Somebody's worried about like if they get sick last minute, like are they going to be able to call in sick?
hmm For us in Texas, every year you earn 10 days because you work 187, but every year you earn 10 days. And there are 5 state days and 5 local days. And so those days the state days will roll over with you. Like if you change districts in state, those will go with you. But the local days are just for that district. And so if you stay in the district, they just roll over year after year. But you do earn 10 days a year in Texas.
So
Similar in New
here's,
Mexico.
oh, awesome. Here's someone who's a sub para and going to finish a master's in the fall and has a master's in another field, and they're wondering if their starting salary will be different or what that might look like with two masters.
It depends on the school district. Ours, we do give a stipend for masters, but we don't double the master. So if it's you have a master degree, if you have 3 master's degree, but we do give a stipend for master and doctorate in our district.
And
And
so
most do, I
yeah,
think.
Yeah,
yeah,
most do. And I would just recommend go look at the salary schedules because if they do offer, and you'll see acronyms like MA plus whatever, and you'll see a different column. So most school districts publish their salary schedules. I don't, do you publish your salary schedules on your websites?
We do. We have a compensation manual, and so it's for all the salary, the pay grade. So if you want to be superintendent all the way down, you can see the salaries.
And the same in North Carolina as well. Those salaries are posted, and then it tells you like depending on the district, if there's a local supplement, some additional added bonuses and things there, it will kind of outline those things as well. But it is public knowledge so that you can see where you would fall depending on which degrees you have and the number of years of experience.
And so if you are in one of our other regions, definitely sign up for one-on-one call with one of our coaches because they can help you be able to navigate and find some of that information for specific, states and regions that you're in.
So, someone's retiring from the military and considering teaching, and what do first-time teachers find most challenging?
Hmm.
So I'll kind of chime in. One of the biggest challenges that we see with our teacher ed candidates, either the traditional fresh out of high school and gone through the 4 years, or some of our advanced programs as well, is classroom management. That's one of the biggest things that we hear from our school districts is that if we could get them a little more comfortable in managing a classroom, then we can teach the content, we can teach them how to teach standards and things, but it's kind of the management pieces that they need. So some of the things that we've done at our institution is that we've actually embedded classroom management courses within their program area. So they're getting an entire semester worth of classroom management. And in fact, that's one of the courses that I teach, and I'm teaching it this summer for our elementary education majors. So that's one of the biggest challenges is actually being able to kind of stay on schedule, time on task, those types of things. all the inner workings of a classroom and how to manage and keep those things rolling.
Yeah, I'd second that.
I third it.
What does a career ladder look like for someone who wants to stay in the classroom and not go into administration?
It's a great question.
It
I,
is a, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I hate to step on your toes there. You know, I've got my son is a teacher, and I've sort of I am his one-on-one coach. There are lots of pathways, and if you want to advance, there's always your master's, right? And that often bumps your salary and also your level. I would recommend looking into the national board certification in New Mexico. Well, in my district, I think we're up to a $7,000 a year stipend. So if you've maxed out on your levels, but you want to challenge yourself and stay in the classroom, that's something I would recommend. Then there's also the opportunities to coach. If you're at the secondary level and you have a passion and a knowledge base in a sport, you could always coach as well, and that keeps you in the classroom. Those are my ideas.
Yeah, and with the national board in North Carolina, it's a 12% pay increase. So it's 12% of your salary added on. So we always encourage our teacher candidates to pursue national board certification as well. And we do. We have our students that say, you know, I don't want to leave the classroom. I want to continue teaching. And so we strongly encourage that because we want good teachers to remain in the classroom. But there are other opportunities as well that you can serve as mentor teachers to beginning teachers and some struggling teachers, but it still keeps you in the classroom. It still keeps you teaching and doing what it is that you love, but you're also being able to support your colleagues in a different manner as well.
Yeah,
I would say in the state of Texas, you want to look at districts that do have teacher incentive allotment. Not all districts do that, but it is available to all districts, but not all do it. Because the whole point of our Texas Education Agency to create teacher incentive allotment was to retain excellent teachers in the classroom. And so it does add to their pay based on their student growth and their evaluation.
yeah. And again, for folks in the audience, I certainly encourage you all to sign up for one-on-one coaching. There's that QR code right there on the screen. Gloria, is there any one more question?
Oh, I just closed the chat.
All good. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. Real quick, like from all of you, if there's somebody, on the call tonight that's considering taking that step to become an educator, real quick, what would you want them to know? I'll start with you, Emily.
Okay, I think what I want them to know is that there is room at the table for you, and you just need to find like what your passion is, if it's elementary, if it's secondary, if it's coaching, we have openings in all the areas, and we can definitely, you just need to find out where your heart is, and then we will welcome you with open arms.
There you go. Guillermo.
I would say lifelong learning. If you're a lifelong learner, if you have a passion for that, if you're open and you want to keep learning, education is a beautiful place to be because you will need to learn something new every year. Every year is different. No 2 days are alike, and no other profession, especially I'm going to talk from an elementary level, offers the opportunity to walk into a room where 20 to 25 kids or people absolutely love you just because you walked in the door. So it is a wonderful, wonderful profession.
In Lamoris.
Absolutely. My piece of advice is if you want this profession, we want you. I advocate and strongly encourage folks to visit classrooms, especially if you haven't been in a classroom maybe since you graduated high school or it's been a little while. The teaching profession looks a lot different than it did when you were probably in school. So I strongly encourage folks to visit classrooms to see what it's like, the day-to-day operations, to be in a classroom setting. If you realize that it's truly not what it is that you want to be doing, then don't do it for the sake of just doing it. But if you have that heart, if you have that passion, and if you want the teaching profession wants and needs you.
Right.
Yeah. And we can help you do that here at teach.org. So
And
we
at UNC Pembroke.
Come on to Texas.
And Gadsden ISD in southern New Mexico.
There you go. In all of those places, but we certainly can help you be able to navigate your way into all of those school districts and all of those EPPs that were mentioned here tonight, through you connect with one of our coaches, who are current educators. Feel free to utilize that QR code right there on the screen. I know some of you all have scanned it already. Yeah, you did. And we again want to thank you all. We want to thank our speakers. We want to thank everybody that joined us tonight. But certainly, we want to thank our speakers for sharing your wisdom, your experiences. So thank each of you for joining us tonight. For those who are still on the call, please take a moment to complete this quick survey. Give us some feedback. It's going to pop up after this webinar ends. Your feedback, again, helps us be able to shape our future events. Tonight, you gave insight. You gave us inspiration, and you got clear next steps. So, with that, thank you all again for joining us and have a great night. Bye.
Thank you for the opportunity. You guys have a great evening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.